Welcome back to the Hip Chronicles, episode number 3, The Flexible Mayor, Yoga, Hips, and Healing. Today's guest is no ordinary yogi. She's also the mayor of Fairport, New York. Julie Domaratz is 9 years post-hip surgery and ready to share what she's learned on the mat and through the long arc of healing. Trust me, this story's got range, and not just in the hips. So let's get started. Welcome to the Youthful Older Yogi podcast. I'm MJ Waddell, your yogi host and founder of Share Yoga. I've been practicing, teaching, and loving yoga for over 25 years. I'm an advocate of movement, creativity, and staying healthy in mind and body in the prime time of your life. It's never too late to start, and there's a lot of healthy years ahead. So let's start now. Hi, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Youthful Older Yogi. I'm MJ Waddell, the creator and founder of Share Yoga, and your host for this podcast. So welcome back to the Hip Chronicles. This is episode number 3, and I've entitled this episode, The Flexible Mayor, Hips, Yoga, Hips, and Healing. And you'll find out in a minute. I'm so excited that my guest today, she's back. She is a returning guest. She was on about a year ago, Mayor Julie Domaratz. And she is actually from my hometown, Fairport, New York, which was recently voted number 4 best hometown to live in across the country, which comes as no surprise to me. And I'm sure she has a lot to do with that. So, but the main reason Julie is back is because, and I want to thank her so much from my heart, when she heard the last episode of the Hip Chronicles, or the first episode of the Hip Chronicles, she called me immediately and was the first person to say, "Congratulations, you're going to get new hips." And it was like the first person that didn't wince and grimace when I told them I was getting new hips. Reason being is she's had new hips. So this is amazing. I'm so glad that she's on. And we're going to talk today about her journey. And before, when she was on the podcast, it was about being change maker, and she knows how to shake things up. So I'm so glad that she's here. Julie, thank you so much for, first of all, the phone call, and also I'm telling you, everyone, whenever I told them, they'd be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And you were like, "Congratulations." It was like so uplifting for me to hear somebody positive about my upcoming surgery. So Julie, thank you for being here.
You are so welcome. It is my pleasure and my honor to be here with you.
Oh, I appreciate that. Okay, so Julie had double hip replacement anterior, exactly what I'm going to get 9 years ago. So she's going to share her story and her journey. And I want to start with, can you take us back to the moment when you first found out or when you first realized something wasn't going on, something was not right with your hips? What symptoms came up, and did you have an idea what was going on?
You know, the first symptoms were really tough for me to distinguish because I was teaching yoga. I'm physically active. I was in my early 50s, probably right around the age of 50, 51. And I would get up out of bed and one of my hips would just give out. I couldn't stand up. And then I would have pain, but I would have trouble walking. Walking any kind of a distance would just be incredibly painful. However, I could go and teach a yoga class or practice yoga, take care of all the movements that I needed to. But some yoga positions were becoming more and more painful. And it was just this gradual building to the point where it became tough to walk very far at all. Yeah. And that is what set me in motion going to see my first orthopedic surgeon.
So I want to tell listeners also, this was happening around the time that Julie and I were in a teacher training together. And so I was kind of part of this first steps. But I do remember you sharing with me about your first meeting with the first surgeon. Can you share with the listeners what happened?
Sure. Um, the first thing that happens is when you go and see an orthopedic surgeon and you're in your 50s and you have x-rays and they look at the x-rays and they say, well, most of my patients are much, much older than you are, and you're in better shape than most of the patients I have. However, this was a surgeon who only did posterior, which is cutting in from the back and cutting through muscle. However, I wouldn't want to do surgery on you right now because you won't be able to practice yoga anymore, and you probably won't be able to teach yoga anymore. And it'll have a lot of restrictions. So you're not really a good candidate right now for surgery, even though you can't walk. Uh, and it's going to change what you're able to do. And it was devastating. And I remember my husband uh, driving, he was waiting for me, and we drove away from that appointment and we were parked in front of a local sporting goods store. He went in to get something, and I sat in the car and started feeling incredibly depressed and was ready to start crying because you're telling me that I have to make a choice between something I love in my life and it's part of who I am, and making a choice there and not being able to walk. So here, you can walk or you can choose to give up something that you love.
Yeah, I
It's a fair
can't.
choice.
Yeah, completely. Like I can imagine the devastation. And also, it almost feels like you're being blamed for being active. And it felt like, I mean, in a way, some people had said, how did that happen? Like it was my fault. Like I
Yeah,
wanted, I went in and chipped away at my cartilage on my own. And just, it's like you don't plan for these things. And also, yes, 50s is young, but a lot of people get hips before 50. A lot of people, it just, I think that whole age thing is so like, well, you're either too young or you're too old. What, you know?
absolutely. And I think it's become a greater awareness of how uh, challenges happen to your hips because of an active lifestyle to a certain extent, because of overuse. And in my case, I had what's called hip dysplasia. It means that the hip bone was, and I'll use my scientific model here. The hip bone is a cup that the ball of the femur sits into that cup. Well, he said, this is a genetic thing where the cup that your hip sits in was never fully formed, which I can tell you when you are much younger leads to having great flexibility. That leg, you can do splits, you can do all kinds of things. But eventually the ball of that femur sitting in the cup of the hip, it starts to wear away at the cartilage. And can I share my little joke that my friend says to me? I said I had flat balls when I looked at the X-ray, and she goes, "I knew that about you, Julie."
Yes, you have to find the humor in all of it. I wanted to pop in and thank you for listening to the Youthful Older Yogi. I love bringing you great guests, education, and ways to stay youthful in mind and body. If you love the show and want to help me make it even better, please consider becoming a supporter. You get to choose how much and how often you give, and there's no commitment. And remember, I donate a portion of every dollar I receive to charity. For 2025, I've chosen United Nations World Food Program. Just click the support button in the show notes. And just as helpful is sharing the show with others. Thank you again so much for listening. And now let's get back to the podcast. Humor aside, when you can't walk and you're in pain, it's like it really messes with your mental well-being and physical. And I'm still teaching. I just taught a class this morning, and my class knows, like, I can't demonstrate half the stuff, but I can talk them through it, and it's all good. And I told them today, I said, I'm just giving you the practice that I have to do to keep all my muscles around my hips really strong before my surgery. So I'm actually just teaching you my exercises that I do daily now in the yoga practice. And it's nothing, it's pretty similar actually to a lot of
It
the,
is.
yeah,
It
yeah.
is very, it's about the idea of yoga and being a yogi uh, is to take care of your mind, your body, and your breath, and that union of all of those. And uh, that's why yogis invented yoga poses to take care of their bodies when they were meditating all the time.
Right, that's right. So they could sit comfortably cross-legged and they still had cartilage.
Yes.
They could sit in Sukhasana, an easy pose. I can't even sit like that anymore, but I will be able to very soon. Um, so you were teaching, which is great. You're still teaching, and did how did that impact your teaching style?
Well, some of how this came about, I was taking teacher training that you were delivering as one of my teachers, and I couldn't get into these poses that folks who are younger or who have greater mobility, they're like, well, do it anyway. You'll be fine. And what it did for my teaching was to give me the grace to respect that we never understand what's going on in somebody else's body. And you have to be able to find the way to help them to get to their place inside of a yoga pose. And it may not be what is shown in all the books or anything close. So it really changed the way I looked at students in my class and thought about uh, in the different styles of or types of yoga classes that I was teaching or instructing was um, how to help somebody who has physical challenges in other parts of their bodies or in their hips, in their knees, in their ankles, how to help them get what they should be. I shouldn't say should, what they're looking for out of the practice.
Yeah, whatever the pose delivers, it's not about the look of the pose, it's about the sensation of the pose and really what are you hoping that they sense? Is it a muscular engagement? Is it muscular flexibility? Is it breath? All of those things. And I agree with you there. It really does, especially as we move into our later years. Joints are tired. They're just tired, so they're still strong, but they may not have the same range of motion. But you can still find, like you said, your place. Where does your pose start to just give you the benefits of the pose instead of looking at a Cirque du Soleil picture of something like that's like never attainable.
The expectations that a pose, the expectations of what you're going to look like in a pose need to go out the window, and you need to be sensing, what do I feel in this pose? And that's the experience that you want to help a student get to is what does this feel like? How are you experiencing this in your body? And what is the benefit of this pose to you, however you're doing it?
Yeah, I agree. Even today, at the end of class, I guided them into Supta Baddha Konasana, which is you're on your back, the soles of your feet are together. It's called like a butterfly pose, and you open your knees out to the side. I could not demonstrate it. I said, and with supportive blocks underneath the knees. And I hadn't taught this pose in over a year, but I was like, I had done all these. I think they just need to right. And we had done a lot of really deep hip flexor and things like that. And it was interesting that I could not do the pose or demonstrate it. And some people that couldn't get into it, I could modify for them or give them a variation, no problem. But it's made my teaching more. I think it's just a feeling of I understand how that might feel not
Yes.
good. It might not feel good. Whereas for years that felt great to me. And I joked with them. I'm like, look at where my knees are now. And then when I come back a few months from now, let's just see, let's do a little comparison. So anyway, thank you for sharing that. And so emotionally, I know you sat in the car from that first surgeon. Obviously, you went somewhere else, and you got a different surgeon and a different opinion. How many doctors did you actually go to?
I went and saw five. Five.
Wow.
When I had the conversation with you after the first trip to the doctor and I was feeling really down, you said, I have experience with this through my brother, and he works with the devices that are used for hip replacements. And I know of all kinds of very physically active people who have had hip replacements and have gone back to their professional lives. And you said to me, you just haven't found the right doctor yet. And so that took going to see four more doctors, and on the last one I found someone who, I'm in Rochester, New York, and she had just moved to the area a few years prior, and she was one of the few doctors at that time who was doing anterior hip replacement. And when I saw her, it was the match made in heaven, because she was a heated yoga practitioner, uh, and she knew what I was talking about versus this other doctor who, the first doctor who I saw, who only treated older people, had never practiced yoga, had no idea what I was talking about, except for the fact that, well, you won't be able to do that. And she said, you are the perfect candidate for this surgery. And you will absolutely be able to teach and practice yoga when you're done. And it's going to be fantastic. And that's why I take away telling you it's going to be fantastic. It doesn't mean that it's easy, but it's going to be fantastic.
Yes, and I so appreciate that. And it is, you have to have complete, and you're like me, Julie. We're knowledgeable about our bodies. We teach yoga. We know when something's not right. And isn't it nice to have someone like, it's like on your side, like, we got you. Like, this is
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
After four other doctors going, wow, well, I don't know. You're
I'm not the doctor to help you.
That's right. Yeah, that's amazing. And so when you were sitting in the car going through your emotions, and then you finally found the right surgeon, how long was it before you actually had the surgery? Do you remember?
I think it was a few months. So my surgery was at the beginning of March, and I think I found this surgeon probably in the January time frame. So it wasn't very long after. It was a few months afterwards, and I was very nervous,
Sure.
very concerned. I'd never known anybody who had had any kind of hip replacement, and it was scary, but I had a very supportive team.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, and you're doing the double. So this is also, my surgeon said, I'm the perfect candidate for, both hips at once, which when I tell people, they gasp, like, how could that ever be possible? And I'm like, please hold your gasping and just,
Yes,
no, please hold. And I don't want any fear to come my way. I already have anxiety about the surgery because it's not a walk in the park for certain. It's like it's a big surgery. And so what were your biggest concerns going into the surgery besides the anxiety of just a major surgery?
I wasn't sure that I could actually do this. And to do both of them at the same time was, you just mentioned the reaction. Everybody who's never had this surgery says, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this." And my doctor said, "Look, I have a practitioner, a nurse practitioner in my practice," or it was either a nurse practitioner or a technician, and who is much younger than I am, or was at the time. And she said, this person had double hip replacement surgery. How about if I set up an appointment so that you can just have a conversation with them and they can give you an idea of what it's going to be like and what the recovery is going to be like? Because it's different than just doing one hip. With one hip, they will tell you, we expect, a few hours later, you're going to be up and walking around the hospital, and you're going to take your first few steps, and then you're going to be out in a day or two. And it's not quite that same walk in the park. However, for the right people, and in with my conversation with him, I was really believing and feeling more comfortable that I was the right person for this type of a surgery, to have both of them done at the same time, and that I could do this.
That's so
And that's what
great.
you really need,
Yeah,
is
that's
to know
so great
you
to
can
have
do
that
this.
support. That's why I have you now. You're like my cheerleader that's had it. It's like you're my coach. It's amazing. It's come full circle. But my doctor also said it's not, you'll be in more pain because we're doing both at once. The first few days you're going to be on some painkillers for sure. He said, but the one thing that sticks in my mind, he's like, 6 weeks after that, you'll be walking 2 miles pain free. And he said, I have no qualms about you continuing your yoga practice and your teaching. You're in great shape. He said, you have much more flexion than I thought you'd have after seeing your x-rays. So I was like, okay, good. The yoga and the practice, it's like it's a benefit instead of, I don't know about you, but there are days where I don't want to move because of the discomfort. But
Sure.
but it's like I make sure I do some form of movement, strengthening, and something, even though it might be uncomfortable. And so you went in. Well, that was my next question. What gave you courage? You had a good support system, which is great. And what were some of the unhelpful or awkward or just plain stupid things that people would say to you before, after, or during? What?
I remember going to the hospital for my pre-surgical visit, and you go in and you meet with a nurse, and they take your vitals, and they go through all the things that you're going to do uh, prior to surgery. And the first thing the person who came into the room said is, "Why are you getting your hips done? You're such a young person." And, and I'm like, because I have bad hips, because I can't walk. Uh, um, and it's not just once that you will hear that. You will hear it over and over, and eventually, by the time you go to get your surgery, you're like, okay, talk to the hand, because I'm not listening, because you are not helpful. And I would just let it go in one ear and go out the other. And I think having the support system of the people around me, who, my husband was very supportive, and he's like, I want you to be able to walk in Wegmans, because he knew that I didn't mind grocery shopping, but I couldn't. I needed the shopping cart. We would call that my walker, because you are from the Rochester area. Everybody shops at Wegmans, and I would get the shopping cart so that I could get to the door. And he's like, I know you like to grocery shop. You can't even get from the car to the door.
Yeah.
So, you will hear plenty that's not helpful. However, I believe as part of our yoga training that we think about that's somebody else's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's their stuff, it's not my stuff.
Right.
And I think that it was a worthwhile surgery, and I would highly recommend it. And after I had the surgery done, I had some senior students who had the same surgery done, and I would talk with students. So it was, when we talk about how did it change your teaching, I could have those conversations with students all the time, but afterwards and go, look, I'm up here teaching, I'm walking, I practice yoga. You're going to be okay. Make sure you do your PT.
Right. Well, as far as the comments, I'm pretty good at setting boundaries now. I'm like, I'll tell them and then I'll say, hold, do not come at me with any stories of negative, because I don't want to hear them. And I want to stay in my own bubble of optimism because I know it's going to be better. And so that's, yeah, I've learned how to do that so far. And I still, let's see, we're taping this episode in May. I think today's May 12th, and my surgery, once this comes out, I will be a couple days right away from my surgery, which is at the end of June. So I still have, as from this filming, I still have a few more weeks. And every week that goes by, I'm like, let's just do it. Come on. I'm like, I just want to do it. But there's a lot of other things that comes into play. Um, so let's go to the recovery process. Tell us what it was actually like, not the nice version. Like, was it hard to go to the bathroom? What like the nitty gritty, the real stuff? What was the?
This is all the stuff that nobody tells you
Right.
before you get surgery. My surgery got delayed. It was supposed to be at 7:30 in the morning because there was an emergency surgery on a 91-year-old who had had his hips replaced, or one hip replaced, by the surgeon who was my surgeon, and they were in emergency surgery with this 91-year-old all morning long. And so this was the Monday after Easter that year, and he had fallen. And so now we're waiting and waiting and waiting. Once we went into surgery, it happened late in the afternoon. So when I came out of anesthesia, it was probably 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, and I was in my hospital room. And the first thing that I would say out of it is, you'll find out if you have any reactions to hard drugs. Because within 24 hours, I was very ill from the painkillers they had given me. So, you'll find that out, and they'll find something else for you. It's not a walk in the park when you get up. And while most people are in the hospital for, like I said, maybe 2 days, I was in the hospital for 5 days. I left on so I had my surgery on a Monday. I left finally on Saturday. You will be working towards the point that you can get up the number of stairs that you have to get to recuperate. So I had to make 4 stairs. I had to be able to do 4 steps. And it took all the way till Saturday morning for me to be able to do 4 steps. And it was pretty painful. When you come home, you need to have a great place with no stairs for a while. And I happen to live in an older home that has a full flight of stairs to get upstairs to our bedroom. So it's about week 2, you'll have somebody who comes and does occupational therapy and the beginnings of PT with you at your house, but you have to learn how to not overdo. You and I are doers. It's very hard. Although I had my trusty cat who got lots of one-on-one time with me, who kept me very stable on the sofa.
Yeah. No, I'm going to follow directions for sure.
Yeah. So, you know, it's not a walk in the park, but you will be able to walk in the park. And I think it's the hurdles of that. I myself was a rare patient that when they do anterior hip surgery, they put the stitches in the front of the hip channel underneath the skin and then glue the skin shut. I was one of 2 patients that my surgeon had ever seen that I had a reaction to the surgical glue. Lesson learned. We were able to overcome that. And I think it's not pain-free, but at 8 weeks, I got on an airplane, flew to Portland, Oregon with my husband, and was able to walk with no one else by myself from the hotel to the farmer's market, which was a pretty good walk. And I was out walking for 2 hours and then made my way back to the hotel. And it's just an amazing experience of having that freedom after not having freedom because you can't walk anywhere.
Yeah.
So do your PT. It won't be pain-free. You might have reactions, but no, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And that trip to Portland makes me always laugh because we still relive it when we're in hotel rooms. Our hotel room was at the very far end of the aisle from the elevator, and I would do my PT exercises, which was sidestepping squats all the way to the hotel room every time I got off the elevator, and then every time we went and got on the elevator. And occasionally we'll stay in a hotel now and I'll start doing that and he'll laugh and he's, "What are you doing?" "I'm doing my PT. Don't you remember?"
I love it. And I have an odd question that I always give my guests the questions before. What does the scar look like if it's glued together? What does the scar look like? How big is it?
Um, so I would say there's about a 6-inch scar on the front of each of my hips.
Mm-hmm.
And that first year, it looks like somebody cut you and it's red. Over time, so we're 9 years out. It's got a tiny bit of a pucker
Mm-hmm.
um that looks like if you had a cut on your arm and you don't see like stitches, but just you see like a little scar,
Right.
like if you'd had a burn or a large cut on your arm or your leg. And you know, I'll live with it.
No, it's like
I'll totally live with it.
not that most people will be seeing that part of my anatomy, but I just
Well,
was,
sooner or later,
you
you
know,
might consider going with shorts on. And I had a pair of running shorts on. I'm not a fan of wearing short shorts or anything like I call them like old lady shorts because they cover the tops of my thighs. They're still way above my knees. But I had a pair of running shorts on, and you can't see them in running shorts. And the first time I bought a bathing suit after I had surgery, I just wanted to get a pair of like those surfer shorts or actually like the same thing as running shorts because while I'm not a fan of bathing suits to begin with, it just makes you feel a little more comfortable.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well, thank you.
and
Like I'm worried about.
will I just thought of something that, you know, polite people don't talk about, but you will need a lifted toilet seat for the time when you are home. And nobody thinks about that. But when you sit down on a toilet, you need a seat that comes up to meet you so that you don't have to bend so far. And
Right.
it will go away.
Yes, because of the flexion. You don't want to do the flexion too much. Yes. So one of my prior guests, she has a whole story about how a neighbor said, I've got a toilet seat for you." So she has, yes, that. And I've got this whole book about what to expect, and it teaches you how to use your walker, to use stairs, and it teaches you the toilet and all of the things. And she also said, get yourself a claw, one of those pincher, so because she's like, I couldn't pull up my underwear or my pants. So it's like practice with that so you can dress yourself literally. That's
No snaps, no zippers. That was the first time I went to the store and bought pull-on stretchy yoga pants, not the tight ones, because I wear fairly tight ones. But I bought a pair of, at the time, that was a big deal that I bought the yoga pants, sweatpants that were
yeah.
pull-on because
Yeah.
you'll need them.
Well, all my pants are big, flowy Florida pants. So I don't wear any, everything I wear is loose because it's like a million degrees here. So I've got that, and I've got the grabber. I've got one. So
you may need something if you don't wear just flip-flops. I had something to help put your socks on, and I had something to help put my shoes on because I don't live in Florida. And in March and April and into May, you need socks and you need shoes up here.
Right, right. Well, I'll be up in Rochester when it happens. So, and it'll be summer. So I hopefully no socks, just flip-flops, and I won't have to deal with that, but I'll be aware of it. Thank you. And then when did you, well, you said it was the trip to Portland where you went, oh, this is so worth it, right? When you could, and then when did you start to really feel like yourself again, whether it was on the mat or off the mat? When did you really feel like, oh my gosh, Did this ever really happen? Like,
I I think that I would have to say probably in that 2 month window, I really felt like myself. You keep, your brain keeps saying, you've got to be careful. And I would talk to my doctor's office and she would say, you have no restrictions. You can do anything that you want to in yoga. And I still today have moments where if I'm getting into a yoga pose and I feel any kind of twinge in my hips, I'm like, oh, get back out, stop.
right, right.
But I really think at the 2 month time window, about those 8 weeks when I traveled and shortly thereafter, um, I really started to feel very, very different about life and about how many things that I could do versus all the things that were limiting me in my daily life. And it's a fantastic feeling because at 6 months, you're good to go.
Yeah.
They don't, they're like, we'll see you in a year. And then after that, they're like, come back and call us when you're having problems. But other than that, we're done with you.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can't wait. Um, so, and has your perspective, well, I think you just answered it, your perspective on moving and actually moving into later years, what's the perspective like? I just hear so many people put surgery off because they're either afraid of it or they just don't think they can do it. What would you say to someone that might be facing this right now? What would you say to them?
Don't wait. There are many younger people who are incredibly physically active. I look at the examples of um, Lady Gaga. She had hip surgery. I think she had resurfacing, which is different. But it's serious hip surgery, and um, it was limiting her life and limiting her career. She's a dancer. You know, you're a dancer. I would say don't put it off. However, when you go to your doctor, depending on whether it's now or whether it's 9 years ago or whether it's 5 years before that, when I had my surgery done, I was in my early 50s, 52, 53, and they said, well, your hips are good for at least 20 years. And I'm okay, so I'll be in my 70s, 80s. And the surgical profession and the tools that they have to do surgery change all the time. And I'm hoping that I will stay mobile for as long as I want to be mobile. I think that putting it off lends itself to so many other things that happen both mentally and physically in your body. I'll use another well-known example. Prince, who passed away,
Yes.
needed hip replacement surgery and did not have it done. And the drugs he was taking were because he had such severe hip pain.
Yes, yeah. And also my brother-in-law who works for the company, I won't say the company's name, but puts in the hips, the shoulders, everything. Mary Lou Retton was a spokesperson because all her years of gymnastics, she had her hips, and I think she was in her 40s, early 40s when and she became the spokesperson for it. So, and now it's done, mine is going to be done, I think, part robotically also. So the measurements are like, because one of the comments was, your one leg's going to be longer or shorter than the other. I'm like, no, not true. So
Not true at all.
I like it. So, but anyway,
What do they think we're in the 1920s?
oh my God, what's going on here? It's like, so yes, it's so advanced, aren't we? And we're so fortunate that we live in this time where orthopedics has just exploded and helping so many people reclaim and continue their quality of life, which is amazing. And so you called the other day, or when you called or texted, you said, I just got into, I think it was side angle bind. I think it was that you said. Um, and so I was like, oh my gosh, she's got the yoga superpowers back. So, and if people who are listening don't know what that is, you're in this lunge position and with your front knee bent to 90 degrees and your back leg is straight and you're reaching over the bent leg, and then you wrap your hands around underneath your thigh and behind you, and you grab your hands. Right? Is that the pose?
Yes, that
So
was pose I was in.
yes, and so you said, "Oh my God, I was just doing that." And so, what was going on in your like physically, mentally, spiritually when that happened?
Well, one, I just like when I'm practicing with you, I have a very good teacher here in Rochester. And uh, I was just amazed that a great teacher can help a student get someplace where they felt they were inadequate and they would never be able to get to. And I credit you as being that kind of teacher as well. And it was just really fun because I like to have fun when I practice yoga. It was really fun to get there. And a couple days previous, we had been starting that pose and we took it into Bird of Paradise, which that's when you are in that pose and that leg that's in the front ends up being up in the air and you've scooted your back leg in. And I don't know that I had done Bird of Paradise maybe in since before I had my surgery.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of binds because I have other physical stuff going on. And it just feels it's not it's not success like you've gotten to some place and oh, I'm so successful. It's really a euphoria of being in your body and knowing that you are not as limited as you are mentally.
Right. Well, that's the whole thing. It's like it's the power of the mind, not the power of the pose most of the time. And I'm just so when you shared that with me, I was so ecstatic for it, and also so jealous because I can't wait to feel that sense of. Well, I think I've always thought bodies are miraculous. It doesn't matter what you can do, but they want to heal, they want to serve you. They're just miracles. We are living miracles. So I'm really excited to just kind of walk into a new chapter of yoga for me after this surgery. It'll be like starting brand new. Like I'm really looking forward to that. And and I just want to thank you again so much for being a cheerleader for me. I just have a couple other questions.
Sure.
Um,
I just want to add one more thing about that practice. I have heard from teachers to say thank you to your body for letting you um, just have a body and be in a body and all the things that it does. That particular day, I had already said it to myself in child's pose at the beginning of this practice. And I really meant it. Thank you to my body for letting me do all the things. And our teacher said it at the end of class as well. And I felt so embodied in that. Thanks to my body for letting me have it.
Yeah, I say that to well, when I practice myself, even in this kind of restricted practice that I've been having for the past year and a half, I still thank my body. I still like, I love you. I love everything you've been doing for me. I'm like, and I'm going to love you through the surgery. I'm going to give back to you as much as you've given to me all the time. And, it's just, it is, if you really think about it, to anybody that's listening, you are a miracle. Our bodies are miraculous and they want to heal and they want to do the best that they can if we work with them. And that's yoga, the union. Just work it out. Is there anything you would say now to that doctor? Not to be mean spirited, but or if someone does go to a doctor, let's put it in this context. If someone goes to a doctor and the doctor says you'll never be able to do this, you'll never be able to do that, what would you want to say to that person besides because a lot of people just believe what the doctor says. So what would you tell that person, or based on your experience, what would you suggest they do?
I think there's this world that we live in that we don't believe in science. That's not what I'm saying. There is a lot of science, and doctors go to get a lot of school and have a lot of practice of what they're doing. What I would tell that person is similar to what, in the same vein with what you shared with me. Go out and look and see what other doctors might say. Go see a second doctor and look up all the doctors in your area who do the work that you're looking to have done and find out, is it really a fact, or is it one particular doctor's perspective?
Mhm.
There's, and I'm not saying that there's, it's hard to put this in words without it sounding like I'm a conspiracy theorist or someone who doesn't believe in science. I believe in science. I believe in medicine. I believe in all of those things. But sometimes the fit of a particular doctor is just not the right doctor for you.
Right.
And to understand you as a human being that doesn't fall in the textbook of the people who they treat. And that, that doctor saying to me, I'm in better shape than 97% of his patients, but I know that I was in great pain and I was losing my ability. Yes, that might be true of his patients, but he wasn't the right doctor for me because I wasn't one of his patients.
Right.
If that makes sense to you.
It does. It makes complete sense. It makes, because you and I are not quote unquote typical. People think people that need hip or any type of joint replacement are older people. They're old people, and that is not true anymore. That is not true. So it has nothing to do with age at all. And and also, for me, and for you, thank goodness we are in good shape. We don't have any other, things that might, like other medical issues before,
Sure.
other medical issues going into it, which a lot of people do. My brother-in-law's dad, he just got a hip, and he was 87, and he's doing great. He's standing up straight. He's not in pain. So it's like, and I have the same surgeon as this 87-year-old man, but my experience will be different. And I think I'm just so glad that you shared that. Just you went to 5 different doctors. I think knowledge is power. I've done the same thing. I've researched, and then my brother-in-law knows all the surgeons, and then I stalked him and read all the things. But I met with him, and I have full confidence in him, and also that he sat for 3 pages of questions that I had. Oh, I wanted to say one other thing, Julie. You gave me some great advice about some other considerations. Do you remember what they were? If you don't, I can tell you.
I don't.
Okay. So, and I wrote them down. So the things that they may not tell you. So Julie suggested that you might donate blood, right? So,
Oh, yes.
yeah. Can you explain that?
Be especially with someone who's doing both hips at the same time, there's a greater likelihood that because you're in surgery for a longer period of time, it's virtually double the length of a normal surgery, that you may need a blood transfusion. My surgeon told me to go ahead of time. You can do it through the local Red Cross. I went and gave blood, and I went twice actually and gave blood, so that I had 2 pints of blood, and I needed both of them while I was in the hospital, not during surgery, but after surgery. They had to give me a transfusion in the first couple of days, and then a little bit towards the end of the week. They also used the second one because while I had low blood pressure, there were other factors that they decided I really needed a blood transfusion. You just need that extra little oomph of your blood.
That's
So
yeah.
that is one. Talk to your doctor about, should I do a blood donation, so that if while I'm in surgery or post surgery, if I should need it, that it's available, that I have blood available for myself.
Yeah, I think that's so smart. And just to be clear, everybody, we're not doctors. We're not telling you,
No.
we're telling you to ask. This
Yes, that was clear. I said, ask your
yes,
doctor.
very clear. And I have this at the end of my podcast. I'm not a medical doctor. Just sharing this stuff though. And also you had no idea of your allergy, first of all, or your reaction to the heavy drugs and the surgical glue. So those are just things that, you might want to ask your surgeon, like, how do you do stitches? Do you do staples? Do you do surgical glue? Like, so and for me, I'm going to have to go to this online class where they talk about everything. And so you're not in the dark going, nobody told me this. Like, right. So I appreciated that. And I wrote that down. That'll be one of the questions, the blood question for sure. Cause I didn't even consider that. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And I think that's all the questions I have. Is there anything else you'd want to share before we wrap up this episode?
I would like to share a thank you to you, MJ, because if you hadn't said to me when I had seen that first doctor, you just haven't found the right doctor yet. I don't know where I would be today. It would have taken me so much longer if I had had hip surgery to get to a point, and I don't know that I would have found a doctor right away that did anterior hip replacement. And I want to say thank you. You don't know how helpful that was. That's where people don't understand when they tell you these, oh, you're too old, you're too young, you can do so many beneficial things for other people and say beneficial things that you'll never know the impact that has, although I keep sharing it with you.
Well, thank you. And also right back at you, because literally when you called, this was just 2 days ago. And I'm like, okay, you're going to come back on the podcast if you want to, because you're the first person that's been like, congratulations. So I'm receiving that from you. Your words matter. And it was like, oh my gosh, it was like just getting an IV of positive, literally, because there's so much negative. How are you going to do this? What are you going to do? Wow, you're blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh my gosh, just let me get the surgery, okay? So I appreciate your work.
Have surgery, have a good support system, and they'll make sure that you have a support system, because they won't let you leave the hospital. It's like having a baby. They won't let you leave unless you have a support system.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited, and I'm thrilled that you'll be back in the Rochester area for just a little while.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sure we'll have a visit. So Julie, hang out for a little bit while I say goodbye
sure.
to listeners. And again, I want to thank you so much for listening to the Hip Chronicles. This is episode 3. So by the time this comes out, I will be very shortly receiving my procedures. And I'm not sure what my energy will be like for future podcasts. So please go to my website. I know I'll be able to write a lot more than I might be able to not do a podcast for a couple weeks. And that's shareyogawithmj.com, shareyogawithmj.com, if you want to follow along the Hip Chronicles. And so thank you so much. And until we meet again, please keep sharing yoga. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you so much for listening. Now you can go to my show notes on YouTube or Buzzsprout and send me a voicemail or email. I'd love to hear what topics you'd like me to speak about, what your thoughts are on the episodes, and maybe I'll share your message on a future episode. Please subscribe to my website, shareyogawithmj.com, so you can receive my newsletters and be first to know about my retreats, workshops, courses, and freebies. If you navigate on social media, you can find me mostly on Facebook and a bit on Instagram at Mary Jane Waddell. That's Jane with a Y, Jayne. This podcast would not be possible without the help of my editor, Dan Jones from Cocoa Beach Productions. You can find Dan at cocoabeachweb.com. And of course, thanks to my generous guests who share their time, insights, and youthful wisdom. Remember, the Youthful Older Yogi podcast is presented solely for educational, inspirational, and entertainment purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for a physician or other qualified professionals. Okay, yogis, stay well, stay youthful, and keep sharing yoga.